Hello, everyone. Welcome to More People, More Problems. Hey, with your hosts, Britt and Chels. Yes, hello. We've got a nice topic in store for everyone today. Before we jump into it, though, just a quick reminder that we won't spill anyone else's tea, just our own, of course. And a reminder that the thoughts and opinions and all the crazy things that we bring up during the podcast are of our own and they're not of our current or former employers. So, with that lovely intro, and then a quick plug, of course, to like, subscribe, share, blah, 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 add a comment, all those fun things.
Please do add a comment though. We don't get enough of those and we want to interact. So forget the like, add a comment. Let's go.
Forget the like, add a comment. Okay, so I'm going to toss it over to you, Britt, to intro us on our topic.
Exciting. Okay, so today we are going to get into what do great managers do? Whether you want to call them managers or leaders, just as a disclaimer, we'll probably interchange those two titles. I do think there's a slight difference, but in today's topic, we're really talking about managers. And so, why does it matter? Like, why do you need great managers within an organization? And to me, I think, with the guarantee that you are doing like a great hiring process, meaning you are bringing in the highest potential people into your organization. It only works if you have the right system in play to support that. And that system is great managers, meaning the managers come in to lead the team, more specifically, the individuals to reach their high potential and impact sooner. And so, the way I always think about it is every company starts with one person, the CEO, and they want to do more things and have a bigger impact. And one day they realize, I need more humans. I can't do this alone. And so they bring someone in. Once again, they hire someone that they believe is a high future potential person for impact. They like how they think, they like how they learn, and they're like, if I can give them the right resources, they're going to have an impact. Well, that comes down to that CEO managing, leading, and really getting the most out of that individual. So I think it's such a crucial piece of really any team, organization, the DNA really of the organization. So we thought, let's double down and let's talk about today. What does that look like? What do you or what can you do to be a great manager, and what's the impact of that in an organization? So what do you think? You like that?
I like it a lot. Um, but what I was thinking as you were talking was essentially, who are those great managers that you've had in the past, and
Yeah.
are those the people that you're trying to be? Like, I think about that all the time, and I don't necessarily have the perfect lead in mind,
Yeah.
who exemplified all the things that I want to be as a leader, but I have chunks of various folks who were managers or leaders to me in the past, and I've kind of combined them. So for me, it's always been the things that I want to be, and then the things that I don't want to be
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
because I have a lot of those, and we all have managers and leaders from the past that were like, "Ooh, I'll never be exactly like that," or "I'll never treat employees that way," or "I'll never, do this," or "I'll do more of this," for example. So that's what it kind of pings off for me.
You know what that made me think of? Now I'm gonna play it back. So, do you remember like the teen shows where they would be talking about like, I don't know if it was plastic surgery or what, but they would like cut out a celebrity's eyes and then like cut out a nose and then like a mouth and an outfit, and they would like put it together and it was like the perfect body. Like that's what I feel like, we do, right? Like there's a manager A that I've had that was really good at giving feedback, like constructive feedback. It never felt like they were attacking me, but it really felt like they cared, but it drove me to be better. And it was like some pretty critical and raw feedback. But they also like didn't give me enough opportunities. So I didn't grow. Like there's things you like and you don't like that you
Right.
pull together and you build this
Yeah.
smorgasbord of what the great managers look like.
We're
Yeah.
building the perfect manager. It's like build a bear, but
Yeah.
like build a manager right now. So we're going into the shop, and I would like
Yeah.
this much vision, and this one who's really supportive of employee development, and this one who gives a shit, and this one who's not mean and stuff like that. So we're putting
Yeah.
all those little pieces together now to really like show what does an impactful, like, great leader look like.
I totally agree, and I think that there is, always gonna be a personal touch to it too of what works for you. And so that I think it's gonna be a really fun conversation that we can get into. And hopefully by the end of this, we can simplify it into a few key takeaways. So for people listening, whether you're an individual contributor and you're like, oh, my manager sucks because they're not doing this, maybe you want to go seek someone who can provide you a better experience and a stronger team. Or else if you're a manager, you might be like, oh, I'm really good at some of these and kind of shitty at others. So let's work on them. But before we do that, I do want to talk a little bit of the difference between individual contributor, meaning you are just someone that shows up to do your own work, you're responsible for yourself, and manager slash leader, where you're responsible for others, and kind of what do you get from each one of those roles? Because I think
Mhm.
that's important. And I think too often people look at manager roles and they get excited because they just think more people are going to are gonna roll up to me, so I'm gonna get paid more money, I'm gonna have more responsibility, and it's like, no, there's pros and cons to each one, and it's 2 different
100%.
tracks. So in your mind, what what is the value of going from IC to manager track?
Value. Well, I think that, of course, like you said, it's a different track. So you're going from being that contributor where you're having your own successes and those belong to you,
Yeah,
versus you're going on to support a team as a manager and you're supporting multiple people in, you know, really pushing their own development, and you're sharing successes with a team.
yeah.
And that can be really, really impactful, and it can be really rewarding as well to see how you've been able to kind of support others in developing and creating and leading. And of course, you're leading that vision and you're leading those projects. You're not the individual contributor, as you've mentioned, where it's like, hey, I wrote this strategy. No, as the manager, you're leading the strategy in terms of like you're supporting that vision and you're promoting that for your team. But that's maybe not necessarily
No, I think that's so accurate, and actually, I know for my transition when I was just one to the leader of many, I used to love being the hero. Like, that was my favorite thing. So talking about an I like, individual contributor who not only is all the direct credit a response to what you've done, so it's, like, legit a representation of you, you
right.
also get to come in and be the hero yourself. When you then become a manager or a leader, you're doing that through others, and
Mhm.
so you have to get um, like, what's the right term? But it's like delayed credit because it's not a direct causation of you. And that takes a minute to get adjusted to actually value yourself on impact and say, like, how am I doing? And so, like, a pro to IC is that you get all that. And that might be the type of, motivation you need. As a leader, I would say one of the pros is you get to tackle bigger problems because when you lead a team, you're able to take on problems that no single one person can manage on their own. So you have, thought partnership, you have creativity of many, you have more actual humans to do work. So what
Yeah.
would take you a month could take a team a week. And so, like, I would say that's a huge pro for being a lead. The scope of your work and impact can be a lot larger
Greater.
in many scenarios than that of an individual contributor.
Well, you're collaborating. I mean,
Yeah,
not just amongst that individual, but many possibly within your team and many outside of your team as well to put together some great things that are going to be much more broad and have that impact. But I think that's great. It's almost like a double-edged sword, right? Because you mentioned like as an individual contributor, you're like, this is me. Like I wrote this, you know what I mean? And for me as a manager, it's beautiful and amazing to see the team progress and to do all those things and know that you were a part of leading towards that greatness.
yeah,
But exactly like you said, that's not all for you anymore. Like that credit. So you have to put that aside and go like this is a shared kind of credit system, possibly a delayed gratification system, but you're getting to see a lot more broader projects and initiatives be launched and be at the forefront of the creation that goes outside of just maybe one person's expertise, right?
totally. I would say as an IC, you kind of get this mastery of your own craft that you're able to really tune into and go deep in. When as a lead, I think you are required to go broader and really have people within your team that go deeper, and your vision and your scope is really across. So you can
Mhm.
kind of create more leverage, if you will. But it could
So
be hard.
oh, it can totally be hard. So, like, I wanna flip that on its head for a second. We can have great successes together as a team, but we can also have
Oh,
failures as well.
100% fair, fair.
So how do we kind
Yeah,
of flip that as well and go,
yeah.
"Hey, like, some of the results of the work that's been done, a lot of effort's gone in, and it either hasn't worked out or it's been stopped or whatever the case may be," and you have to own that, and you also have to own stuff you didn't personally
Well,
create
let's
either
take it
and
a step
eat it.
further. Usually when it let's be honest, like if it's a positive thing as a leader, you push it onto your team and the people who really did it. Like you still overviewed, you're still responsible, but you do say, "Hey, Jim and Jane, like great work." When it's negative, you actually as the leader get the brunt of it and you shield it from your team.
Yeah.
You're still giving them feedback, but you're taking it. So like it's actually a very difficult and you know, a little less rewarding as a lead. Like that's hard to just go through. And I think that's a responsibility of the lead. We're really selling this leadership
I
position, but
Well, it's just kinda taking that one aspect and
that's
flipping it
very
because you
smart.
wanna
Yeah.
show the reality to people as well, because a
Yeah.
lot of people automatically go, "Hey, I get more money and I get to do all these things." I'm gonna, like, put aside a lot of the glamour of that first off, like, for many different reasons. You're also in the line of fire,
Yeah.
almost all the time, and exactly like you said, if you're doing things properly, you're sharing the successes, but you're shielding from the failures or from a lot of the maybe harsher
Yeah.
criticisms that are definitely going to come to you as the leader. You're in the spotlight a lot more. People are gonna know, like, "Hey, you guys fucked up." Like,
Yeah.
"You fucked up." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't do it." But like,
But you
"Yeah,
gotta
you
say,
did."
yeah, you're responsible. It's your team.
Exactly,
Totally.
right?
Totally. I'd say the one of my favorite things, and I always say to people who are thinking about taking like a manager or leadership role, you gotta care about the people and you gotta like to support people's growth and development because to me, as I think you've said a few times on other podcasts we've done, like if you don't care about the people and you don't care to see them grow and develop and really get charged up by that, you shouldn't be in that position because that's probably the one single thing that is the most rewarding. When you see someone come to your team and they're like a junior level, whatever, and by the end of year one or year two, they're taking on massive projects and you know you were a part of that.
Mhm.
Oh, damn, that feels good.
Super gratifying, and, like, so there's that care on various levels, right? There's the personal care, in that you give a shit about the person and their life, and you care about them, though not becoming a therapist and not over caring. We've
Fine
talked about
line.
this before.
Fine
The
line.
fine line that you kind of have to, like, balance and, like, waddle across this waddle, like,
Waddle
you know,
across. What are you
head
pregnant?
across it. And then there's the professional development, the caring about that. And like what I've been told many, many times, and I've heard a lot in the last year, is a leader's role is to create more leaders. And like at the end of
Hmm.
the day, I mean, whether you're going down a track of like you want to always be an individual contributor, and that's totally fine, or people actually want to develop and grow into those other leaders, like that's my job to actually spot that type of talent as well, nurture it, and continue to support them through a growth period so that, hey, they can say, yeah, that could be me one day and like look what I've accomplished. And then I look at that and go like, look how amazing this person is, and I got to be there for that journey as well. Like, it's such an amazing feeling.
I totally agree. Some of my proudest moments at Shopify were not that of my own, but that of someone on my team that did amazing things or did something, and I'm like, I know I mean, I guess it's still selfish because 'cause I'm like, I know I had an impact on them, but to see what they're able to do is just, like, outstanding. Like, it's like I can think about many moments where it just fills me with so much joy. Okay, so we're 15 minutes in, so I'm gonna just shift gears a bit and
Flipped
let's
in.
talk about what do actual great managers do. So we've talked about why do teams need managers? We know that you really do need them to leverage and get everything out of the humans that you have and bring them to impact and support them. We talk about like the different tracks. So now it's kind of what do great managers do? And I'm going to try and simplify it to three categories, then we can break them out. So I would say when I think of sorry, I'm covering my mouth as I talk. I would say, as we talk about what great managers do, I would bring it to the first one being, I think really great, yeah, one, really great managers focus on the most impactful work. meaning they prioritize, they optimize for the business first and what really matters. They translate, business goals down to their team. They're saying no to things. They have boundaries. We'll get into this. That's that one. The second one I would say is they really drive. I'm loving your number
I
system.
know.
Drive growth and development in their people. So what we were just talking about, like you give a shit about your people, both personally and professionally. But we'll give examples and how to do that. And then I would say the third one, which is probably the most elusive, is they make hard decisions.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if you'd add to that, but that's how I would break out those three categories. They focus on the most impactful work, they grow and develop their people, and they make the hard decisions. Are you good with those three subject lines, if
Oh,
you
I'm
will?
loving the 3 umbrellas that we have
Okay.
here. So we can break out the umbrellas a little bit. And I think in the context, I'm thinking about public service right now. And probably for a lot of private sector companies, and I know like, hey, we've seen some things happening in the private sector, layoffs, re envisioning what the business is going to look like, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, where we had high care but high costs that came with that too, and
Yeah.
a change of business. And now we might necessarily be going back and re-looking at what the business is going to be. Now, the government of Canada is absolutely doing that because it was a high cost period that was necessitated by our environment, obviously. But now we need to go back and take a look because
Yeah.
the Canadians, that pay for my salary and other salary can only pay for so much. And of course, when you get into a deficit after these types of, exorbitant costs are spent over various years, you need to go back and scale that out a little bit. So looking at it from a more of a strategic lens, you now need to focus as a leader, and this might be all the time or it might be in certain periods. What is the most bang for your buck? Like, what do you need to hone in on that's actually producing the results, that's having the impact? Is it worth continuing? What are the things that aren't worth continuing, where you can cut costs? Ideally, you don't want to have to be cutting people, but sometimes that is a result of those things. But you
Yeah.
need to be able to really look at the entire scope of everything, putting it into perspective about what continues and what doesn't continue. So, what is going to be the best for the organization? And we've talked about before, you're first optimizing for your organization, then for your team, then for the individual, right?
Yeah.
So, you have to take that lens. And as a leader, you're always going to have to look at that more holistic perspective that's going to support the organization and within the context of what's going on around us, right?
Yeah. And maybe it'd be helpful just to give an example of what that doesn't look like. So like we're talking about the good way. So the good way is to optimize for the business, then the team, then the people. So that might mean like your example is right now in the global economy, there is a focus and a need for results and costs and how we're going to spend money. And so many organizations are making really hard and key decisions around how they want to restructure their teams, how they want to restructure their strategy, what they're prioritizing. A good leader then takes that guidance from their leader, the CEO, whoever's above them, and hears what they're saying and says, okay, how can I relate that onto my team now?
Mhm.
And how do I make the decisions? That might mean, oh, you know what? Our team needs to say no to these three items that we were prioritizing last year because they no longer fit within the scope of our top priorities as a company, meaning we have to let two people go. The way that that would be done wrong is if a leader looks and hears that, we need to make cuts both on projects and on people and says, fuck that. That sucks for Jill and Brittany. And I don't want to do that. I'm going to go to my team and complain about what the business is doing. And I'm going to fight so hard to keep you, Britt and Jill. So don't worry, I have your back. And
Mhm.
that might seem ludicrous to some people, but I've seen that scenario play out firsthand. What it does is it pins that team against the organization. It gives a false sense of hope. It pulls you away from the actual mission of the company and gives no context on the decisions. Like it's just so faulty.
Mhm.
And it prioritizes the individuals and probably both the leader as an individual, like in some irrational way, first instead of the proper order in any organization, which is organization, team, individual. And so there's a way to do it with care, and it's not that latter one.
So of course, doing it with care. And I think what's really important in a lot of this is like we've talked about before, you have to actually still shoulder the responsibility of the decision making, even if that comes with the burden as well. Like
Yeah.
you're all together. And I think what people forget about sometimes when they move into leadership roles, it's not an us versus them. And I think often when you're the employee, you're like, it's me as an employee against management. And it's like management. The thing is, when you do hit those management roles and those leadership roles, you need to share in the burden of making those decisions and what the impacts are. You cannot go and bash the organization after. You need to jointly come together and say, yeah, we've all made this decision for the best of the organization. Many people have come together and we all
Yeah.
wear that, right? And sometimes it results in difficult decisions that are made or difficult consequences for individuals, but you're not looking at the individual first. You are looking at the organization first.
Yeah.
And so you have to take your own piece of that responsibility and of that decision that's being made that has the impact, right?
Yeah, I love that. We used to say, you can disagree, but by the time we're done this conversation as a leadership team, you got to commit one way or the other. Because once we leave this room, we have to be aligned and we all have to share a stake in this. So now's the time to fight it out and for us to disagree. But once we go to the hundreds of thousands of employees, we're committed to the movement we need to go forward because that gives clarity, it gives alignment, it gives
Yep.
trust. And so I think that's super, super, super important. I think another run around like focus on the most impactful work. I think like one, be long term greedy. Like I think generally when you're an individual working on your own thing, you're kind of on the hamster wheel. And I think as a leader, that impactful work means you need to like zoom out, look at the bigger picture, which is part of what we just said, but it's also getting curious and seeking more information than what everyone on the team has. It's pulling information up from your team members but also pushing information down and pulling
Hmm.
it in from all angles. And I think another one is to focus on outcome, be really greedy about the outcomes you want,
Hmm.
and don't get stuck on the activities.
Hmm.
And so to me, this is a little bit of like performance versus impact. You need to be results oriented. And sometimes we can rather get stuck in the performance, like, but we, did all the learnings as a team. We did all the right sessions, but then it was a failure. But like go back to, oh, we did all the right things. It's like, no, as a leader, I think that when you look at impact, you got to be greedy on
Yeah.
outcome and then go back through and say, okay, here's the activities that worked, that didn't work, but don't get too stuck on those. Get stuck on the outcome.
Yeah, and I agree. And I have that conversation with a lot of people in terms of like performance management and whatnot.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to go, well, I work like 10, 12 hours a day and I like, work like a dog and this, and that. But at the end of the day, they don't have a whole lot to show for it. Some individuals, of course. Of course, there are individuals who are having impact and are also working like dogs. And that's where some recognition needs to come in at that point as well, or some tailoring of their
I was like, and maybe
responsibilities.
some reshifting. But
Yeah,
anyways,
but you can't always use that excuse of like I work 10, 12 hours a day and like and I deserve this because I work so hard. Well, you might not have been working,
smart.
well, like
Yeah.
efficiently. And so why do you have to work 10, 12 hours and you still haven't gotten the results, for example? But maybe there's someone else who can work 8 or 9 hours and always get the results or consistently get the results. So I find sometimes there's those excuses that get weaved into that when we focus just on the activities and not
Versus
on the
out.
actual outcomes.
Yeah, love that.
S-
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say let's move on to our
Yeah.
number 2 item.
So it's driving growth and development in our people. As I said earlier, essentially like give a shit about your people.
Yeah.
But I think you actually said it better when you said it's okay to connect with their personal interests. As humans, we want to be connected. And I actually think even more so, there's so many things in our personal lives that overlap with our professions. So a good leader does understand what's happening in all aspects from what that person's willing to share so
Mhm.
that you can weave it in and understand it. But there's a line to not be crossed, which is you're not their therapist, you are not family, you are their manager and leader. And so, really be clear about that and then also utilize that for the work side as well. Um
So I have a funny example of this
Yeah,
that I
love it.
think
Go.
about like really often when I go into the office. I have a couple of people on my team. They don't report directly to me. They report to the manager who reports to me. But I see them all the time because obviously we're in the office together and they live in this.
Are you gonna be giving away any secrets like you said at the beginning that we would
No,
never
no, I'm
do?
not
Okay.
giving it away. This is all about me, and it's not about anyone else. There's people who live in the same area of town as me, for
Okay.
example, and, like, at times when I drive in, if I drive myself, like, not when Katie drives me because she's my chauffeur sometimes. When I drive myself, sometimes I'm about to leave my office at, like, the end of the day, and I kinda go, "Oh, I should ask so and so if, like, they want a ride home or something," and then I kinda stop myself at my door, and I'm like, that's opening it up too much. You know what I mean? Because like you still have to have that line and that boundary. And of course, if anyone was in like a bind, then like, oh my gosh, like there's no buses or there's no trains and things have broken down. I have to get home quickly. I for sure would be like, hey, jump in with me. I have my car. But why am I so inclined every day to go like, oh, should I offer so and so a ride home? You know, I don't
I mean,
know.
only do it if you want to. I listen, I speak from a place where I'd really look really close relationships with a lot of my team members. And I'm still very good friends with a lot of them. But what makes that really hard is that if one of them are not performing, the discussions and the conversations and the held accountability that follows is 10 times harder when you have a personal relationship. I felt for me, I was still able to handle that, and truth be told, it's because we were work colleagues first and then friends.
Mhm.
I think if you reverse that and you're friends first, then colleagues,
Yeah.
I honestly wouldn't recommend that. I would say don't do it because I think that then it's the wires are crossed too much. But I do think you can form a relationship, but you need to almost have reminders every once in a while, which is like, caveat, we're close, but first comes the work relationship. And if there's
Yeah.
I'm your leader, like you got to know when to pull back and when not to. But there's some really good benefits to having those close relationships and trust that come from it. But it's dicey. Yeah, it's a hard one.
I find it's dicey too because then you have the perceptions of fairness or favoritism or whatever the case is.
100%.
And I already kind of see it a little bit here and there, not because I weight any relationships more than the others, but it is natural that like when you're in the office every day with folks,
Yeah.
you're interacting with them on a personal level. You're just seeing them as you're heading to the washroom or heading to the kitchen or whatever the case may be. Whereas obviously, when you have team members who are across the country who you're only seeing on a camera through various meetings, you're not going to have as many of those water cooler conversations. So for me, like the way I think about it is for me to go an extra step and go like, hey, let's be driving in buddies and stuff like that. I kind of go like, it's not that I need to offer that to everybody, but I can't have that type of relationship with the
Mhm.
majority of people, so I need to hold myself back at times and go, "Okay, you know, cool it a sec, Chels, like, I know you're inclined to, like, jump in and socialize and do all those things, but I also don't want anyone feeling like they're being left out of certain opportunities," because I guess maybe if I were an employee and, like, a manager was offering to someone else, like a colleague,
Yeah.
like, "Hey, do you wanna ride home?" Or like, "Isn't it great? We're gonna chat all the way back, and we're gonna get to know each other." Like, you will naturally form something, and that might be hard on others, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking 2 things. One, maybe this was one of my flaws that I never fully realized because I you do get a lot of benefits, so I never thought about the challenges that came with it, but it might have been a blind spot for me. But I'm also thinking like fair doesn't mean equal. And so I wonder if there's different ways to create those deep relationships in different formats. But I actually don't have like an answer to that. I felt like in my time I tried to create that, but it'd be interesting to talk to people that reported into me to ask, like, hey, did you feel like you didn't have the same opportunities to have conversations or, outcasts? I might go back and reach out to people and ask actually.
Oh, cool.
But moving this along, one of the things when we talk about growth and development, I think the biggest tool in your toolbox is timely one-on-ones.
Mhm.
I think that it's one of like the simplest yet hardest things to do. But we used to say to every new person becoming a lead at Shopify, Like, the one thing you just gotta get in your calendars, and the one thing that's a non-negotiable for us is that you need to sit down with your direct reports at least once a month to talk about how they're doing, what you need essentially start, stop, and keep. What are you doing that's great? Keep doing. What do you need to start doing? What do you need to stop doing? And we would build from there. We would build things like, how do you practice radical candor so that in the moment you could give feedback? We would build to say, like, how do you give actual constructive feedback? It's not about ever talking about, it's nothing that defines someone. It's like an action. And so there's like a balance between how you portray. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. So there's a fine art to all these things. But I think that at its most basic form, timely and accurate, really great one-on-ones is like a linchpin for any great manager, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And that's going to help to build those relationships with those managers. It's going to help you to give clear feedback, vision, strategy to ping off of each other for those topics that are going to be important to drive the impact with the rest of the team. I think personally, me, I like to meet with my direct reports. We try to meet every week, once a week,
Yeah.
at least, and that's just really in the one-on-one, and we can be talking about obviously all matters in terms of the team and like the things that we're doing, getting done, talking about kind of the administrative management of the team, the HR processes, the finances, things of that nature. And then we're talking also about how are you and how are you doing and how is your workload?
Yeah.
And like, are you getting out of this role of what you were hoping to get out of it, or what could I be doing better that's going to support you, and then thus support the rest of the team members who are under your leadership. So I think the one-on-one timely discussions are always going to be super important. And I've always noticed when I haven't had FaceTime with my manager in the past, and also they're not present during those discussions. Now, you can be on a
Yeah.
computer and you can be in a meeting and you can very much not be present during those
Totally
discussions.
agree.
And that's super frustrating
It's
because
also
you feel like you're
disrespectful.
talking to a wall,
Yeah.
like, and it's even harder when you're in a virtual meeting with someone. You could tell they're typing on their computer and stuff.
I
And
hate
we are
that.
all victim of that once in a while where something urgent comes in. You're like, Just give me a quick sec. I have
Yeah.
to do this. Like, this is obviously urgent." But you shouldn't be like full on multitasking during those personal one-on-ones.
No, you should be fully put the fucking type away. Like, do not type. Just like sit. We used to always even say, like, bring a notepad, write notes. Don't type. Don't put it on your phone. Like, be present because there's so much more that comes out of that conversation of when you're actually listening. I think active listening, as like hooky as that sounds, it's an actual skill that you need to build and move forward from. You made me think of two things though, that I hadn't thought about. So one thing I used to use whenever I got a new team member, so like I hired a new VP or I hired a new HR manager, etc. I used to have this blueprint. So it was actually coined by this great guy, Luke Levesque, who joined Shopify later, but was a entrepreneur in Ottawa, then went and worked at Facebook. But he had created this Luke blueprint, and it talked about like idiosyncrasies of himself. It talked about when, he was most energetic and liked to
Mm,
do thoughtful work. It talked about how he gave feedback, just like quirks about himself.
yep.
So I created one for myself and I used to share it with every new employee that reported to me because I knew I did some things that could be perceived the wrong way, such as I am a very curious person and I also love to work alongside people. A lot of people, though, can get turned off by that and think I don't trust them, that I'm asking questions because I don't think they've done a good job, that I'm testing them. And that was farthest thing from the truth. And so one of the things I utilized was this blueprint because in it talked about my curiosity, that if I'm asking you questions about something, it's because I'm generally curious. And if I have feedback or if I think you're doing something wrong, my promise to you is I'm going to be direct and I'm going to just say it as it is. And so I think a cool tool as well when starting one-on-one specifically or really a relationship, do a little self-awareness and maybe, have the conversation both ways. I remember one of my employees said, like, "I get really hangry. So if you try and book a meeting with me, right, and I haven't eaten, like, I'm just not gonna be able to listen and be in the right headspace."
Sorry.
Right?
Like,
But, like,
totally.
I was like, "Cool." So every time we went into a board meeting, I, like, gave her a granola bar. I was like, "Get ready, girl, let's go." But, like, just funny things, but it's that true awareness. So I think that could be helpful. Maybe I
Yeah,
can
that's
find
cool.
mine and we can share that on socials too. One other thing that I think is super duper important as a leader within the growth and development space, I think that a great manager makes it safe for their employees to take risks.
Mhm.
And if I
Super
think
important.
about my best leaders in my life, they did that in such an epic way where I didn't maybe trust myself or I thought I was going to fail. And it was talking earlier about how we said you have to, as a lead, provide coverage and kind of take the blunt of the, oh, you didn't do this right, but also empower your people and give them the praise. I think that's that trust. That's
Mhm.
that environment for risk taking, and the best leaders I've ever had really provided and gave me projects that were arguably too large of a scope for me, but I grew and did the best stuff during that time.
But that's how you stretch out of it,
Yeah.
right? And that's how you do reach your full potential. If you're always gonna do things that you're amazing at, and you're just gonna stagnate, right? Like, you're
Mhm.
not growing and developing into other things, you're not transforming, you're just kinda always doing things, and that can lead to really actually negative consequences because you're just kinda staying flatlined all the time, and you're not getting that growth and drive for someone who's high growth.
Yeah,
If you're always gonna be just amazing at the things that you just do constantly, then what's the point? Like, reach above and do something that's a little bit scary and see how you do with that.
totally agree. Totally agree. How do you feel like you've done that? Like, provided that space to take a risk?
Well, I try to encourage my team all the time to, like, come up with any ideas that are like,
Yeah.
nothing's ever off the table. Sometimes we have to flip things on their heads and I hate I not that I hate, but often people are like, "Oh, this is probably a stupid idea." And I'm like, "No. None of it's a stupid idea. I wanna hear it. If you think it's
I'll
stupid, it
tell
might."
you if it's stupid.
Yeah, yeah. If it's actually really idiotic, I'll let you know, you'll tell in my face. But, like, oftentimes they're brilliant ideas going like, or "This is a stupid question." No, it's not a stupid question. Ask your question because
Yeah.
it might not be that thing that we do, but it might be some rendition of that thing that you
Yeah.
suggested because we've all then gone and brainstormed off of it and come up with something brilliant. So I try to give this space and I try to, not everyone works on cues, like, just nonverbal cues. I try to verbally
Yeah.
express that to the managers and to the team. Like, if there's ways we can be doing things better, if you have ideas that you feel like is going to improve how we're delivering on our mandate, I want to hear about them. Like, nothing's really off limits. Like, it's all free. Suggest it so that we can
Yeah.
figure it out and, like, maybe build off of that. Maybe it's not something that works out. And if I don't feel like it's something that works out, we'll walk through the why, or has
Yeah.
that been
And then
done
it's a learning
already?
moment.
You know what I mean? There has to be the learning moments, and they have to be able to accept the learning moments and go, "Oh, okay, I get it. I get it. Like, the team did that 3 years ago, and that this element didn't work because of this
Yeah.
and that, whatever."
Yeah, I think similar. And I think the only other thing I would add to that is I think as a manager or leader, you see more potential in your people than maybe they see in themselves a lot of the time. And so I think you do know when to stretch them. There's been multiple times with people on my teams that, I would say, hey, I think you can do this, but this is like a big step in your career. Like you've never taken on a project this size, or you've never had to present to a group at this level, but I think you can do it. And I'll be here to support you along the way. If you need anything, if you want a pep talk, if you want to walk through something and have a thought partner, like I'm there. So I think it's safe space, like you said. It's encouraging, it's teaching through the way, and it's supporting when things hit the
Acknowledging
fan. Yeah.
afterwards, like,
Yeah. I think it's huge.
give them that acknowledgement afterwards of, "Hey, this, like, really worked for us, and these were all the amazing things that came
Yeah.
of this." But then also don't be afraid to go, "And these are the things that we'll probably tweak for next time
Yeah.
because that's a few of these came off a little bit, awkwardly," for example, or in just having the conversation based on a presentation that you created, a lot of dialogue came through of things that we can update and really have a greater impact on the next. So it's not that necessarily things they've done wrong, but it's like feedback like, here's how we can you did great. Here's how we can do even better next time because like we're here to continuously improve and
Yep.
build off of our experiences and our learning throughout the process. So I think that people leaders have to have the courage to do all the steps of that employee development phase.
Yep. Yep. I agree. And so final one, how do you
Oh my
make
gosh,
the
yeah.
hard decisions, right? I think this one's actually let's give a few examples, but I think I would hope anyways that everyone kind of has an idea of what this is. Like I'll be frank and just say that when you're in a leadership position, like very often you're not going to be liked. You'll
Mhm,
always be liked as a person, but you might not be liked because you are a symbol of a decision, a symbol of a position, a symbol of the whole damn organization based on your decisions.
mhm,
And so I think for me, even when I say make the hard decisions, it's a lot of moments that you might not be liked. It's other things as well, but it's, firing someone on the team that everyone loves because they're a low performer and they're not producing the right impact. It
mhm,
might mean cutting a project because it's no longer on the priority list that lines up to the overall impact that everyone loves doing that project. It might mean, switching priorities in general within the team, switching the culture when everyone's going a different direction. I think the hard decisions by nature to me are defined by the decisions that the impact will be felt for the long term. So it kind of goes back to that first one, um, in addition to emotional decisions, because
yeah,
they are the hardest.
yeah, 100%, like, there's gonna have those personal aspects involved in some decisions, and then other ones may be more clear cut. What I
Yeah.
would suggest to people is if you've made decisions based on the information you have, based on you being the expert, based at looking at everything from a very holistic perspective, you've got all the information, you made a decision, stand behind your decision. Don't I mean, if it comes back that it was a colossal fail, of course
Yeah.
you should go back and go, listen, we did this and it hasn't
But
worked
don't
out. So
reverse
we're
the decision because people don't like it,
yeah, yeah,
is what you're
of
saying.
course.
Yeah.
Don't be swayed by people going, "Oh, this sucks and I'm really upset about this." Listen, if you did it for the organization and it makes sense for the organization, then you made the right decision likely. And sometimes that's a point in time. So we know that like decisions were made during COVID, for example. I wouldn't necessarily make the same decisions right now. We're in a completely different context,
Yeah.
right? So things we did then aren't necessarily the
There's
case now.
different inputs.
But what I'm saying is just because someone gets upset about something and they're looking at it from their individual level, you need to be firm and you need to say, here's the decision that is being made. This is agreed upon. This is the right thing for this organization. Here's the reasoning. Here's to help you understand how this decision was come to and to be steadfast in that I truly believe this is the right decision and we're all going to work together to adjust. And it's how you care and support for people afterwards. But don't fall into the trap of like, oh, so and so was upset with me. Like, you had to do the thing that was right for the organization. You don't necessarily have to do the things that are always right for that individual Joe, Sally, and Jill.
Yeah, I think that when you think about making the right decision, you need to have a really, really strong and clear understanding of why you're making that decision, what you hope the impact to be, and how you're gonna measure it.
Mhm,
Because I think you can change the decision based on, different inputs, meaning maybe there's different expectations of what the results need to be because the whole scenario is different, or the measurement, it didn't work. But the measurement shouldn't be individual emotional responses. It shouldn't be, one person deciding to leave the organization because it doesn't line up with them. The why needs to be, yes, organizationally focused, but more so it needs to be like mission focused. Like
mhm,
we actually talk about why people are at companies. Hopefully you're not just there for a paycheck and you're like, I work for this company. You're there because you care about what you're fucking doing. You care about the bigger ambition and the impact of what you're able to do, hopefully as an organization. And with that, when making hard decisions, ground it, root it in those things. I think that will make it somewhat easier. But I mean, the truth of it all is that more people, more problems, baby. It is hard to be a manager. And a lot of what you're going to deal with is, yes, business priorities, impact, and people, and all of the baggage that comes with that, and all of the beauty that comes with that as well. We're complex. And so as a manager, you gotta dig in deep and make the hard decisions that wrap all of that together.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. More people, more problems. And I think on that note, we should just get to wine time. Although I've been wine timing for
I
the
know you
last
cheated.
45 minutes, but it was just an early start. So why don't we just kick it off, Britt, with wine time? I think we've given us a boatload of content here that people can chew on, and maybe they'll have some comments or some
Yeah.
suggestions.
Love that. Okay, let's pause for wine. I'll be right back.
Sweet. Here we are. The little wine time. Okay, I have a little wine that we're tasting today, and funny enough, we're both in the same country,
I'm back, baby.
also in the
Ottawa
same
for the
household.
summer.
Yeah, love it. So we get to taste the same wines all the time now for the summer. Amazing.
Excellent.
So I found a nice little grocery store find. This was on the Quebec side as I was heading to the cottage one weekend, so I had to stock up, of course, on loads of wines. So this is an interesting one. It's called
Is it
Svelte.
French?
Svelte. Well, I mean, it's got French writing on it, but
Just
like,
didn't know. Svelte. I
is
was
it
just
French?
in France, so you
Svelte,
know.
but svelte is like a term for like slim and like
Oh, I
sleek
didn't think
and
of that.
stuff
Yeah,
like
okay,
that, right?
sorry, yeah, it goes with the branding, 'kay.
And here's why it makes sense because it is only a 90-calorie wine, um, 0 grams of sugar, so that's great. Of course, we have a trade-off, only 8% alcohol, but,
I
like,
just gotta throw in there
you
though
can't.
that, like, when have you ever been known to do less sweet wines? Like, this
Never,
doesn't fit
never.
your profile.
It's actually, like, I don't find it
No, you're
super
right, it has
dry
a good
because 'cause I'm
flavor to
actually.
it.
Yeah, because 'cause I'm still enjoying it, but I just spotted and I was like, "Oh, well, I'll give it a go and, give it a tester." I've never really bought in like, low-cal wines or anything. I actually scoff at them when I go into the liquor store and I'm like, "Oh, no,
Not
disgusting."
for me, ever.
Um, but it's 8%, 8%, so we have that trade-off, but you mean you can drink more and less of a buzz if that's what you're into.
Who's into
Um,
that?
any Yeah, who is into that? It doesn't have too much. Oh, it is a
Oh,
Quebec wine.
cool.
It's a Montreal company, so interesting. There's no, like, real description on it, um, and the only thing that really stands out is that it indicates that it contains sulfites, so, like,
Oh, boo.
there's that. Oh, boo, like, everything good has sulfites. Anyways. So anyways, we're enjoying that
Yeah,
Svelte
what do
wine.
you rate it?
I would probably give this, because it's a low cal one
Okay,
and
so we'll do 2. In the low cal category, what do you rate it? Then in the normal shelf.
I give it an 8.5. I give it an eight
For
and a half.
regular or for the low cal category?
The
Okay,
low cal.
I can concur with that. Yeah, and then what about compared to, like, normal rosés? 6.
And just in terms of a normal rosé, I'd probably lean more towards a
Oh, I was
seven and
giving
a
it a
half.
6.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you're stuck up.
Don't just because I give it a bad rating, 6 isn't bad, but just because I give it a little bit of a more constructive rating, you say that I'm stuck up.
Okay. Tell me the Lego pieces of this constructive rating. I want to hear.
Um, I just don't find it has loads of taste differentials. It's, like, kinda flat. Um, I don't find it as crisp as I personally would like. So
She
I
wants it
do. It's like a
crispier.
crispy ass apple.
Crispy
Yeah.
asshole.
I thought
Yeah.
I was gonna say asshole.
So no, yeah, well, this is a PG-13 show, Brett, and you can't say that. No,
I've
just
said
kidding.
F enough today. Okay,
Parental
that would be
guidance
my
recommended.
reasoning. But listen, if you're looking for a 0 grams of sugar, this is your wine.
This might be it
Mhm.
for you, and it's probably at a very reasonable price. I probably grabbed it for anywhere between 10 and
Perfect
12 bucks,
cottage.
if I
Yeah.
can recall, because I was just doing a quick volume
Yeah.
haul. at that point. It
Were
was
you
all
going
for
up with
volume.
just the
How many
kids? Was it
bottles
you
can I
and
get?
just the kids? Where you're just like, "Mama's gotta."
Well, Chloe was in the grocery store with me, and she's like, "I think you have enough," and I'm like, "You never have enough. Like, I need to stock
You never
up,
know who's gonna
obviously. I
pop
don't know when
by.
I'll get back." Yeah, you never know who's gonna pop by.
Uh.
It's usually your mom, and I'm like, "Oh, I gotta make sure I've got multiple types of cheap wine that we can drink together,
So you were up at the
obviously."
cottage, you enjoyed that?
Yeah, it's a lot of mosquitoes
Yeah,
right now there, so I've been staying away for the last little bit because mosquitoes are really rough. They're rough all over right now, but they're really bad at the cottage, so I've been kind of hanging low from there until it
yeah, mosquito
subsides.
buzz is what you need.
Mosquito buzz. Oh, don't put a plug in for mosquito buzz. No, if anyone needs to have their lawns
Mosquito
fumigated or whatever,
buzz.
call mosquito buzz. Buzz. Yeah. I have actually had them before. They've come and sprayed at my
They spray
parents' house
here.
when we had a big
But then
outdoor
someone
party.
said that
They're
they
pretty
had,
good.
like, animals and kids and they didn't do it because it was bad for them, and I was like, "Ugh, I don't know. Me and Scott just don't care about, like, we it's just us
I
2."
mean, well, you have
That's what I
neither of
mean.
those
Sorry, I didn't
things,
mean that
so
I
not
didn't
your
care about
problem.
those things. I meant we didn't care about the effects on ourselves. Uh,
Okay, I was gonna say,
yeah,
well, you
you're an
don't have kids
asshole.
or
Yeah.
dogs or whatever, so it's fine.
Uh,
Yeah, and fuck
yeah,
the
I
squirrels.
mean,
Like
get
nobody
rid of
needs
them.
them.
Yeah, outdoor rats, come on.
What have you been up to? Because you just came back from your
I just came
travels.
back from Europe. I was in France and Scotland, and I had one hell of a time. I mean, who doesn't like going to Europe? And I haven't been since pre-COVID, so it was just I don't know, it was wonderful. It was me and Scotty. We had a great adventure. It was truly an adventure, and I missed, like, the travel adventure of just being somewhere completely different, different languages, different
Yeah,
accents, different personalities, stories, food. Yeah, we
so
had
fun.
great food and wine in France. We were in Saint Tropez. It like great food and wine, but and it was all like Mediterranean, so so much fish and everything. Felt like
Yeah,
I might
yeah.
have lost weight on that part of the trip. I was just active. Then went to Scotland and I was just like meat and potato. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
heavy.
I was like, and
Yeah,
give me a pub, you know? A lot of
yeah.
ciders. But it was wonderful in every aspect of it. I really enjoyed it. And I could not be happier to be home for the summer. Like I am so damn
Oh my
excited
gosh.
to just be with my people.
I know you've been bopping back and forth
Yeah.
various locales based obviously in AZ for the last
Yeah.
several months. And now this is kind of like your homestead, home base for the next couple of months. Yeah, no, we're psyched to have you back actually. Like it's super exciting. The kids want to come over here and see you and
Come visit Auntie
everything
B
and
whenever they want.
come visit Auntie B and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just happy to have my other piece of the
And,
puzzle back,
oh,
you
you
know?
know the
Our
weight of my
little
heart.
piece.
And it's my birthday
Oh,
tomorrow, so,
cute.
like, we're gonna have fun birthday
Woo!
things, which I love.
Birthday, yay, so exciting for
Yeah.
birthday parties,
Yep.
but,
That's about it.
yeah, I guess just the usual for us,
Yeah.
really.
The huge, the good.
Drinking and podcasting,
Well, now we're
essentially.
back together, baby. Well, listen, I think summer cottages, pools are gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna try and squeeze in a lot of episodes while we're together and keep posting them on Tuesdays. We're dabbling with different topics and different approaches. So I really think people should like reach out or send comments or yeah, just give us their feedback and we'll keep drinking, talking, and sharing our wisdom.
And hopefully someone
I hope
likes
so.
it. Hey,
Heart it.
we'll hope so. Well, let's
Mm.
cheers to that, huh?
Cheers.
Cheers.
Love ya.
Ooh, love you.